Hello and welcome to The Law. This is a legal clinic where lawyers and experts provide free legal advice and information to you, our viewers, addressing specific legal issues and also answering your questions with one purpose: to improve access to justice. My name is Mama Vioswabwaji, sitting in for Samson Ladi Ayenini. It is a pleasure indeed to be here. We'll get started right after this break. Now, here's something that's very common when it comes to the issue of ownership of a dead body. It involves conflicts, often between the extended family and the nuclear family. In particular, disputes also arise between surviving spouse and children sometimes over who has the right to make decisions about burial and funeral arrangements. So, who owns your body when you die? Is the dead body a property? To what extent can it be considered property, or can it be owned? That's our conversation today. My guest, Mrs. Betty Mould Idrisu, is a member of the Council of State and chairperson of the Marriage Governance Conference 2025, which we will talk about in the course of this discussion. We see you there, Mrs. Betty Mould Idrisu. Thank you very much for joining us. Also, Dennis Ejejimo is managing partner, Law Plus. It's good to have you. Thank you very much. Berima Oswajimang is operations manager, Marry Right Ghana Limited. I know, what is Marry Right? How can you marry right? We'll get into all of that this afternoon on The Law. So first of all, Dennis, I think I want to start with you. Okay. Let's talk about the legal framework that governs this whole issue of dead body. Okay. Is it common law? Is it customary law? Is it statutes? Because the case that's often referenced, which is Nikwe and Ashali Oko, is based on the Ghana customary law. Can we extend it to all of us?
Okay, thank you very much, Mama V. What you see from the test is that when it comes to the common law of Ghana, it includes the customary law. And customary law has been defined as the process based on Article 11 to be the custom and practice of the particular community. So that is the area that governs the ownership of the dead body. And interestingly, although it's supposed to be based on customary by customary law, the case law, which has been dominant, and the writings from the likes of Olenu to Saba to Abosu to Kluje, is to the effect that when it comes to, by customary law, when it comes to dead body, by custom of the people, it belongs to the extended family. And sometimes, depending on whether you are matrilineal or patrilineal, the extended family also includes the immediate family. And so I do not always want to generalize it to say that it applies to all particular customs, because I've not studied the material for all particular customs in Ghana. I've not studied the customary law of the Frafres, which I've not seen the writings on that. But if you look at, and there's a major thing in terms of the academia, we talk about the canonization of our customary law, because accounts dominate. You see an instance where the practices of accounts dominate in other areas. So what we have done is that we have assumed that that in terms of the dead body, the ownership is governed by customary law. And customary law moves from one particular community to the other. Mm-hmm. So the Nikwe case quite clearly affirmed that by custom, the dead body belongs to your extended family. And this is a case that involved a fight between the wife and the husband's family. And then there are other cases that quite clearly shows sometimes there's a fight between even the families. There have been instances where upon your death, that's when you discover some customary law that you're not even aware of. Somebody will say that the Kwawus came from, let's say, Mampong. And upon your death, there is a head of family who happens to be the original family that you emanated from to settle in Kwawu. So all of a sudden, the Mampong, and this just purely for example, the Mampong people come and say that we are the head of family. So you have seen situations where there are divisions even amongst what constitute families. And people go to court to injuntate and all those things. So it's not always a matter between spouse, children, and extended family.
Right.
There have been situations where extended family has been divided between themselves as to where you come from, because you may come from, let's say, I come from Old Town. My people may say they trace their root to so and so and the head of family. But we need to also mention that in all of these cases, it's when you become prominent and rich. That's where these cases arise. So you hardly have poor people fighting over the dead body of the poor. But just to answer your question, that framework is governed by customary law. But we have several tribes in Ghana which have various customary law, but the most popular has been the one that says that it belongs to the extended family. But the practice direction that has been also been issued and where we have done as Ghana as a secular state, we are seeking to also recognize the immediate family as part of it. And the Nikwe case actually says that they have considerative, they can participate in it, but the final decision lies to them. But there have been several write-ups which now seeks to also give autonomy or some considerations to the interests of the spouses and that of the children. So, answer your question, is that of customary law, but customary law also seeks to change. And then there are some dynamics, and I made an example to you that there are some Ghanaians who neither belong to any tribe in Ghana. And I used the example of our ambassador to South Korea, who's a Ghanaian. In case he dies, what then takes over? There are certain people who may have also adopted their personal law. Example is the Muslims. So you may be an Akan or a Gan, but you become a Muslim. In terms of Muslim custom, when you die, in terms of your personal law you have adopted, become the Islam. And when you die, you buried like a Muslim. In case, and there have been instances where you remember the case of Charles Dramina, where the musician died. He was a Muslim. The family did not want him to be buried in the Islamic way. So your personal law also comes in. So although it's regulated by, customary law dominantly, you could see these facets coming up all the time. Yeah.
Let me bring in Madam Betty Modi-Driso, because you have good experience in this area as well. So your take on this particular subject of what is regulating this whole area of the dead body.
Let me just say that my take on it is personal. And I'm not talking for anybody here, not for any religion, not for any tribe. I'm talking personally as somebody who is advanced in age and, more importantly, I think advanced in the law and advanced in gender rights, and seeing what has happened over the last 40 plus years of me practicing law has been very sad by this, of the family, by this mandate or this perceived customary law and the law as it applies in Ghana, the Ghanaian law of the family owning the dead body. Look, times have changed. Times have changed. And we need, that custom and law needs to change with time. We cannot remain the same. Yes, we must respect the custom. And sometimes this custom has worked magnificently. I come from my tiny village in Kwabre, in the cocoa forests of Ashanti region. My mother does. And I also have a father. I had a father from Jamestown, British Accra. So I've seen both systems working. And I'm telling you that both systems can work magnificently, and both systems can fail the widow or widows and children and the family. I think it's time that the government stepped in to do some legislation on this and helped the Ghanaian family, the Ghanaian widow. I also think it's time that we made wills and that we expressed our last wishes and what we want done with our bodies, so that, yes, the body might belong to the family, but you, the deceased, will have a say in it. Forgive me for saying this, but I no longer have a belief in that old precept that a dead body belongs to the family under customary law. Look, the children are the ones, and if there's no child, then the widow or widows, and then the family. The family is an excellent arbiter when it comes to the dispute in cases of polygamous unions. In cases of Islam, where the polygamy is more rampant, I'm married to a Muslim, so I think I know what I'm saying. They don't have a problem when it comes to burial. They have, and we must respect that. They have their religious beliefs and they conduct it. And 99% of the time, they don't have a problem. if even the children are of a different religious belief and the widow is of a different religious belief, we respect that. We respect the way they bury. When it comes to the Ashantis, I have seen it work so many times. The family can sit down and decide everything, sometimes to the detriment of the children and the widows. But at the end of the day, if there's a dispute, the family then steps in. It's very clear there what happens, but it has caused great grief to the widows and to the children at times, who are nowadays spending the money to bury and to perform all the traditional rites which the families used to do before. The idea of the family doing it, or that the dead body belongs to the family in Ashanti culture, was to do with, a lot of it was to do with what happens when you can't bury, and they're impecunious people. And yes, I heard, I think Dennis saying that this doesn't apply to poor people. It does. It applies to poor people. I've seen it so many times, applying to poor peasant families who don't have money, and yet they're in dispute over who has the right to bury. And I've seen it also apply, where wealthy people, literate, huge millionaires in Kwao, I don't want to name Kwao, but in under the matrilineal system, will leave their 100 houses to their eldest niece, because they are custodian, and leave their wife 1 house and their children 3 houses. I've seen it in the wills. So there are some people who are still believers in this. And it was put there, it came about for a reason. 7 days, what does 7 days mean? When we perform Nawacheda, what does it mean for the accounts? It means that you tell the whole village, and they come, and extended villages and neighborhoods and the extended family, and they come on the 7th day to sit down to decide when they will bury, because it's a collective family responsibility. What do we see today? 7 days is done after 90 days or 100 days. 7 days is done after 90 days, 3 or 4 months. And then it's a party, it's a jamboree most of the time. And the families are just informed of what is happening. The essence of the 7 days has been lost. That too is an important element. And then you have the issue of patrilineal families. Why are there these concerns? I've seen cases where the body the courts have given orders that the body must be given to the sister or brother when the widows and children have taken them to court. Dennis and the other lawyers, you know what I'm talking about. I've seen cases of 2 hearses at a funeral sitting, at a funeral service. As soon as we finished, they put the body into the other hearse. And the sister, who is Eve, sent it back to 37 police mortuary because she wasn't ready to bury. Meanwhile, she had gone to court to fight the widow and the children for the right to bury her brother. The courts had given that right, that the widow and children could perform the service, the funeral service, and then they should hand the body to her. The lawyers stood there with police, and they handed the body to her. A highly prominent person. I've seen it happen also in other cases involving the Evers, who are patrilineal. So, I think that and children had come from all over the world. And then when they were going to pick up the body from the mortuary, they were slapped with the court injunction. I ask you, can we continue like this? We must recognize the reality whilst respecting tradition and custom. So that must be our way forward.
So I hear you say that as it stands now, we don't have any clear law governing, this issue, except that we rely on customary law, but we need statutes to, sort of. Is that it? Just a yes or no?
That is my view.
Okay.
That's his view.
All right.
But I think that there is a law. I think Auntie Betty's proposal is why we are organizing this marriage governance conference, so that we can look at the way forward on it. Because as we stand now, the customary law are part of the laws of Ghana, based on Article 11. Now, what the dynamics and how far we have come as a state, do we still want it in a strict sense to be applied, especially when the state has not funded the National House of Chiefs because the mandate of the National House of Chiefs also include writing down the customary law so that there will be much clarity on it. And in situations where now we have become a nation where we can marry, we marry inter-tribe. So there are situations, and I'll reason with you, where you have, if the children happen to your wife and your husband happen to belong to matrilineal, there's more clarity in terms of the customary law that goes with it when it comes to the dead body. Patrilineal, there's more clarity, but it comes in when there is inter-tribe. So an ever lady marries an Akan. I don't want to give any examples.
No, that's typically my case. So
yes. So in situations like that, and your children that you begot, it becomes an issue. Where do they, quote and unquote, come from? Because if you are Ebe, you are patrilineal. Mm-hmm. If you are Akan, you are matrilineal. And that's where these conversations often come about. There are also situations where, a typical example is what has happened, unfortunately, incident that happened, the 8 people that are involved. Imagine, assuming without admitting that the family had said that I'm not willing to agree to the whole process that the nation wants to give to them. What would have happened? There have also been situations where you may be a royal, and based on your family, you are a Christian. You have adopted Christianity as your personal norm, and you become a reverend father, or you become a Baptist priest, and when you die, your people say that for us, when you die, there's a particular way we bury you. There has to be some fetish. There has to be, which you may not ascribe to when you were leaving. How do we go about it? And also, the practice has also been situations where wills are read after burial. So can we have a situation where people's dying wishes, you want to come in?
Yeah, I just want to say, because we've seen sometimes people express their wishes.
Yes.
So you can write a note different from that will.
Yes, even if you write a note, because you do not owe yourself, the position of the law is that once you are dead, you become a property, quote and unquote, for your extended family. Nemo that card don't have bet. You cannot give what you don't have. So because customary, we respect the dead. I have seen situations where people's dying wishes were ignored. Yes. Okay? Because it belongs to the family will dictate. And even the place of burial, okay, apart from there are 2 elements when after you're dead, it comes involved. The funeral is one activity, and the burial, where to bury you and all those things. You may have your dying wishes. If you have a strong head of family who are very reasonable, they may be willing to accept your dying wishes. There may be instances where you may, during your lifetime, had a problem with your head of family. And upon your death, the head of family now thinks that it is a time for us to use it. So there's a balancing act that we have to look at, and possibly so as to bring more clarity. And it's in this regard that the Chief Justice issued practice direction and even the timing, because dates are fixed, and people go to court sometimes at the very dying time that you're about to commence the burial or the funeral, and they come with an injunction. And these are all things that creates confusion on it.
I want us to look at the law of succession,
yes,
because the law allows you to determine how properties that you acquired should be distributed.
Yes.
Even when you do not leave a will.
Yes.
We have the PNDC Law 111,
yes,
which prioritizes the nuclear family. So yes, what kind of rationale is behind this whole idea where the nuclear family is pushed aside when it comes to the dead body?
It's because the inter succession law basically sought to regulate the aspect of property, okay, in terms of physical, movable and immovable property. And it was supposed to correct what the customary law, the mischief that the PNDC Law 111 sought to cure, if you read the memo of PNDC Law 111, was to cure that mischief where the nuclear family, people who were the spouses, were ignored. And I can give you an instance where sometimes even the law works an injustice. I'll give you a practical case that happened somewhere in Kumasi, where a woman married in her late 60s. Married a man, the woman was living in the house with her siblings. Married in her late 60s, the man then moved over and stayed with the woman, and the woman died first. By operation of law, that house became the matrimonial, and it belonged to the man. And that created another whole confusion. So I get a situation where we are quick to, we'll deal with the customary situation, but and that's more reason why there's a paper that has been done by Professor Hammond and Batawari, where they made proposal in this our plural system that, okay, let's give the spouse more rights and autonomy when it comes to the funeral arrangement, and let's give the extended family more power when it comes to the place of burial for you'll be deemed to have been going back to your blood. And in case the person does not have a family, quote and unquote, the kind of family that he recognizes, and that's what PND's law section 10 does. When you do not have a family, be it matrilineal or patrilineal, the family that you yourself create as you identify with should be the ones that will seek to deal. So these are all some of the issues that we want to bring to the fore to have a conversation on and see whether we should use statute to now give a clarification to say that in terms of statute, these are the hierarchy when it comes to your dead body. It belongs to the immediate family has precedence or even maintain the customary position, for instance, so as to avoid there have been instances where a chief still belongs to a family. A president still belongs to a family. In situations where the family says that when a president dies, we do not want a state burial for our royal. I'm sorry, the state will have to go back. Then the family will take precedence. Okay, because that is the position of the law. Customary law is also part of the laws of Ghana, and that regulates that aspect. So if you want to even bring statute in, we have to have more consultation on this so that we don't have a pushback on it and goes ahead with it.
I read a case where...
Dennis, yeah. You didn't mention that the PNDC law 111 was 1984.
Five, yes.
How many years later? How many conversations haven't we had? When I was Attorney General, I put forward a bill in 2011, was it, or 2010?
Yes.
For the realignment, the amendment of PNDC Law 111. What has happened? What has Parliament done under Article 22? What has happened to us? Why, when it comes to gender enabling, why are we doing this to ourselves? PNDC Law 111, 1985. And some of us had to work with the women lawyers to get it to even the, let me say, limited stage it is. If it wasn't for our courts and our judiciary, we wouldn't even be where we are now. Still, people don't know about the law. Still, people are doing what they want despite the law. Come on, get real, Dennis. And let us face our challenges. I expect to face you at the marriage conference so that we'll come out with excellent way forward for us for the next 25, 35 years.
I like that. It's like the lines have been drawn right here on the law. But I was just going to say, I read a case where because the person was a chief, yes. The chiefs wanted to have access. They wanted to bury it. And the family was also claiming the rights. But in the end, it was left to the family.
Yes.
Except that the court said, you can negotiate and then do it.
Yes, that's what Insia was quite clear on it.
But can we also clarify this issue of the right to the dead body is not the same as the funeral? Because you can actually organize a funeral without the dead body.
Yeah, it depends. But what we are saying is that the whole aspect of having the funeral is also part of the death conversation. Because the funeral is the last respect that we are paying to the dead. So I've seen situations where there was a conflict between the children and the extended family. The children wanted to have a ceremony. The children could not call it a funeral. Because immediately you call it a funeral, you will be inviting the extended family in. The children have to now tag it as a Thanksgiving service, so as to be able to have their members and their friends come to them. And we have seen situations where Ghanaians die abroad, okay? And they have to be brought to the country. There's one case that we did. The wife brought the body. After the man died, he respected and brought the body. Immediately brought the body, there was a confusion. Another woman pops up and says that I'm the wife. And we had to go to court for the court to determine who is the wife. And for 5 years, the man was still in the morgue. Yes. People have been in morgue for over 20 years in this country. Real. So these things that we are having these conversations, the cost involved. And remember that when you're a hospital, the dimension, even the confusion, you can ask transitions people. You'll be there, the children may be the first, or the wife may be the first set of people who brought the body, the corpse to the morgue. And you are there, and all of a sudden they bring you in. So you see transitions in court most of the time as a third party in most of these proceedings, because that's where the morgue is. The person, the hospital who has the corpse has a contract with the person who brought the body in, and they cannot release the body than the person who brought the person. But immediately, mostly when people die, the first set of people who take the corpse to the hospital will be the immediate family. Mm-hmm. Then you are there, and the extended family comes at Yabaji this year.
So on becomes another. At what point do they take over? I mean, if we're going with custom in terms of the
from day one, immediately the person dies, you have transitioned to be a property of the extended family. So all the conversation, and that's one reason why if you look at some of these new funerals that are coming up, the extended family will say that for us, we have not, although the person is dead, I did not mention names, the extended family came out to say that we have not heard that the person is dead, because traditionally, even though you have to send emissaries to go and announce it to your partner's family that this person is dead. So there's a whole protocol when it comes to customary law, even telling the owners of the body that somebody is gone. And that's one reason why we need, there should be a clarity on some of these things. So, and I'm telling you, once somebody is dead, you'll be surprised. The person you have never met in your family, you have never heard of, will pull up as the Bushia Penny and will detect to you, this is how it's done. And we think that even if we want to maintain customary law, there has to be clarity, because some of them impose their personal views as the customary law and may not be the customary law. And that's why we need as a state to be able to fund the writing of some of these customary laws as mandated by the Constitution, so that there's clarity, than to wait for somebody to die and all of a sudden you get there and some man comes up and say that this is how it's done. Meanwhile, he had a problem with the deceased, or he had a problem with the spouse, or may have felt that when the deceased was alive, he paid attention to the wife and the children more than the extended family. The person may have not lived in the village, may have lived at a certain place, socialized at a certain place for all this while. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, the family says that bring the body to the village. It has to be negotiated, but I think that there has to be, even if we are going to maintain the position of customary law, can we write it down? Possibly. But in terms of that space, what is regulated more is more about the extended family, but the courts have now said that they have to also give recognition to the immediate family. And that's why Auntie mentioned the fact that there were times where the children and the wife were made to participate in the funeral, and I've seen that before. There was also another big woman who died, and the body, it was sad, the body had to be basically whisked away by the extended family after the funeral. Okay, so these are conversations that we need to have, and remember, everybody, including myself, will die one day. And so if you think this conversation is not about you, it's about you. It's not about the property. You may be able to share your properties well in accordance with PNDC law, your will, or PNDC law 1 will take care of it. But how you are treated, you don't want a situation where you are kept for over 5 years.
But you're saying that even if you were to state clearly to the people who matter to you that this is how I want my body cremated, I want to be buried after 3 days, if you were to give clear instructions, it still may not be carried out.
It may not be carried out. And I'm saying that if looking at, and based on experience, what people do is that if you are very strong-willed, and your family members are strong-willed, the practice, the style has been to call the potential controversial people in your family and give them those instructions, including possibly an imam or we often don't have that with the Muslim, or possibly a reverend minister with that instruction. And because the family also believes that if you do not perform this right, the ghost from the ghost world, the person may come and worry you. So it's more out of fear. Okay, and there have been instances where people, for instance, when the person dies outside the country, people have brought the body here not because they could not bury the people there. Because many a time, the extended family may make a point that bring the body, but they are not willing to fund it. You have to personally fund it to bring the body here and stuff. So these things, there are a lot of, issues around it, and we need to bring it back to the forefront than the usual matters that we ignore.
Right. We're going to activate the phone lines shortly so you can join us. There's also a bit about biological wills that I want to touch on rather very briefly. If you want your body donated to a teaching hospital for research purposes, for instance, we've seen that happen. How do they get it through? That's
what I'm saying, that it's usually, if you look at the Anatomy Act, among other things, if the family do not agree, it will be very difficult for it to happen. Because in terms of hierarchy of the owner of that property happens to be the extended family. But if the family agrees to it, and then it's back to the conversation of where you yourself, you would have convinced your family to come on board that these are your dying wishes, because donating of your body also happens to be your dying wishes. And when no family intercede to take the body, then the Republic comes in to take over. So that's what mostly happens.
But then there's also no law, I understand, governing organ donation in Ghana.
Yeah.
And it's a huge problem. It's something that we need to have. I've been interested in it for the last 10 years. It's something that we need to have another meeting on, another discussion on. There is no law governing donation of organs or transplants or whatever it is in Ghana. So it's widely misused.
Yeah.
Right. So we are saying now
so
that
just to mention the point that the Anatomy Act, if I may read it, say where an individual in writing during the life of that individual by word of mouth in the presence of at least 2 witnesses during the illness of which that individual died, directs the licensee shall carry in relation to the body of that individual after the death a matter specified, and before burial of cremation of that the direction is made known to the executor or any other having lawful possession, then the executor of that person shall permit the licensee to carry out the matter. So it's more relating to the Anatomy Act where you can actually go by that instruction to be carried out.
But anything else...
And remember that Anatomy, just to support you, this law was passed as far back in the 50s. So it's a very old law.
I was going to ask what date, what year it was.
Yeah. It's 1965, Act 280.
Yeah.
So we are also saying, Auntie Betty, that this is also not clear enough.
No.
At all. There's no law. So Ghana has become a haven of exploitation, don't you know? Where people, and the doctors themselves cannot do certain organ implants, because it's against the law. And then people come, give our girls 5,000 Ghana cedis to carry their babies. It's a whole mess up to do with surrogacy, fertility, reproductive rights, and then this organ donations and organ implants. Ask any lawyer and they will tell you of the problem. Even if the person's will is read before they are buried, then some of these things can come into play. Most of the time, people's wills are not even read before they are buried. They are read after they are buried.
Yeah.
And, I just wanted to say about telling people your last wishes, because writing your last wishes down on a piece of paper is not legal. It doesn't give it any legal significance. It only gives your relatives, it should give your relatives an indication of what you want. And if they respect you, they will try and do what you want. But I'm saying that it's a huge problem and it needs clarification now, because a lot of people now want to be cremated and the families don't want their loved one cremated, for example. Yeah. So it's something we have to look at.
Yes, right? and that one is answered by Section 3.1 of the Anatomy. It says that it will not apply where the surviving husband or wife, or in the absence of the husband or wife, a known relative of the deceased individual who falls within the prescribed class is opposed to the matter of being carried out. So if you have given instructions that this has, and they're opposed to it, the law says that they take precedence.
Right. Okay, so call us. Call us now on 0302-211-691. 0302-211-691. Keep it brief, because we're also going to be talking about the governance, the marriage governance conference that's coming up. Do we have somebody? Dr. Ado is joining us on phone. Dr. Ado, thank you very much for calling in. Where are you joining us from?
I'm calling you from the Upper West region.
Great, please.
And my contribution, it's been a very interesting discussion, and I must say, yes, we have lapses regarding regulation. Like Mama Betty said, that we don't have specific laws on organ transplant, donation, etc. This is what customary law, like Brother said, and new way of speech is very problematic, because when such events that made cannot tax, the fund by right, you cannot do that, cannot be carried out. And nothing happened. We've had this disorder. Like Mama said, some of the
can you please just reposition yourself? I think we're struggling to hear your complete sentences, please. Can you just...
I'm referring to the aspect of this.
No, I think you would have to call us back. I'm afraid you have to call us back. 0302-211-691. Call us with your questions and your contributions, and kindly keep them brief. Berima, I'll come to you as we talk about the Marriage Governance Conference pretty shortly. Do we have somebody else joining us on the phone lines? Okay, so call us on 0302-211-691. We're talking about who has legal ownership of your dead body, because we're all going to die someday. Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, afternoon.
Yes, Derek, you're joining us from Akuse. Thank you. Let's hear you.
Yeah. I'm saying that with the dead body, everybody knows, particularly the extended family, that it belongs to the extended family. But what I'm realizing is that sometimes the will, as one of the lawyers talked about, would actually be read after the dead body is buried. And normally when you say it orally to anybody in the family that, okay, when I die, I want to be cremated, I want to be buried here, I want this to be done, I realize that that one even works more than relying on the written documents.
Really?
So that is what we need to look at, and probably if we can incorporate that, or maybe make it a formal document for people to know, so that when it happens, the wishes of the dead could be carried out. That is what I have.
All right. Thank you very much for that thoughts. You can also join us on 0302-211-691. Okay. So this conference, because, initially I said, okay, this conversation is in two parts as we advertise. So let's get on to the second bit of the conversation, which is, creation of marriage, as I've broken it down, and then dissolution of marriage, because we're talking about marrying right. It's the beginning and the end, isn't it?
Yes, and apart from that, there are several incidents that occurs in the course of marriage. And so whenever we speak on the Marriage Governance Conference, so last year, we had the first time we had the conference, we had Justice Etutu speaking on how to protect your private property in marriage. Okay, the concept of prenuptial agreement. Fortunately, the courts after the conference have made pronouncement that prenuptial agreement is enforceable in Ghana. It's possible for you to draft one and for it to be enforceable. There have been that conversation of even how Islamic marriage, the lack of the state putting administrative measures for Islamic marriage, for people who are married in accordance with Islam, to get the state issue certificate. They're still being done. They're very slow about it, but at least some steps are happening, and the provision of the law which seeks to nullify an Islamic marriage when it's not registered within 1 week, which is still part of our laws. And this law has been there as far back as 1907, repeated in 1951, and that happens to be the position of the law. And these are some of the things that we hope that through these conferences will be brought up. So the incidence of marriage is not just about just marrying. There are so much incidents that comes after the marriage, from the time of even the marriage, even how to regularize it and all other things. Because you could see quite clearly the provision that if your pastor was not licensed, the church was not licensed, you go there and you celebrate your marriage, the effect of it in law, the fact that the state has been, quote unquote, not very effective in ensuring that pastors who are not licensed continue to conduct ordinance or civil marriages. These are all things that we think is all part of the governance process, even relating to children and taxes, marriage and taxes, among other factors, how to maintain all these. And these are the conversations that we hope to bring to the fore. And there are instances where you also see people are now attracted to going to the studio to discuss their marital affairs, as well compared to going to court. So it's all part of it. Now, there's a bigger issue where in Australia, they have passed a law to regulate the amount of time that children can be on social media. They have actually banned social media for children in Australia. In Ghana, we have not done same. The amount of time that we spend, digital time and all those things is part of, there are incidents relating to it. So that's what...
Wait, are you saying there's something wrong with going on radio or television to discuss your marriage and get
I'm saying that the construct, the constitutional construct of where to get resolution is the court. But if the people are more attracted to radio than going to court, it means that maybe we may have to look at it well. Maybe the court may not be serving the justice that the people so desire. Right. So how do we have conversations around these matters?
Let's just quickly go to the phone lines, because I have Peter J joining us from Techiman. You've been hanging on for a bit. Good afternoon, and thank you so much. Peter, let's hear you.
Yeah, I want to ask a question about tradition. The traditional laws were written or instituted by based stability.
Hello, Peter.
Because of traveling, work, and others, people have moved adapt and some beliefs and beliefs and norms. As I speak to you myself, when I die, I don't want to live. I don't want the body to be there for about 3 hours. For me, that's my personal view, and I don't live in my community. So why should anybody decide that because of tradition, the body must be carried 400 kilometers to another place, and the cost and all that? Nowadays, the children will bear the cost, and even if the family will bear the cost, my will not be respected. So for family issues, we see that if the family see the strong view of the person involved, the family will respect it. And I've seen instances that this thing has happened. So for me, for instance, all my family members know that when I die, I will not move to the hospital. If I die from the hospital to the cemetery, which will not take about 3 hours, depending on the time I died. If I died in the next morning by 8 a.m., my body will be moving. So I think we should also see these things about people in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your plan. I've seen somebody die. Well, so she had been in the hospital for quite a bit.
Yes.
And she knew the end was coming.
Yes.
So she made her bank codes available to her only daughter who was with her. Yeah. She made the withdrawals, of course, before she passed. What it meant was they could do the funeral within 3 weeks with her own money. She made provision for it,
yes,
even though it wasn't written.
Yes.
So what he's describing, he says he's strong. Yes. I mean, he's strong-willed. Yes. So they would do as he says.
Yes. And I'm saying that if they do not do as he says, he's dead and gone. If, for instance, the family, the wife or the children, if you want to enforce it as we speak, and they go to court to say that this is what my father said, the position of the law is that the person who owns it happens to be the extended family. So if, for instance, we decide to, and it will maybe come up, where we have a wills registry as part of the court where you deposit your will. Can we have another registry where you deposit your dying wishes? We can then be immediately read so that now we get to know your burial. And these are the conversations that we want to have.
Okay, I want to bring Berima in this. This is the second one. Yes. What was achieved in the first one?
Thank you very much. So the first one was very groundbreaking for us. Given that it was the maiden edition, we had very incisive conversations. For instance, we spoke about customary law not protecting women and whether that was a truth or that was a myth. We also spoke about the fact that marriage is not expensive, but then it's the party that makes it expensive. A check at the Registrar General's Department actually shows that you can register your marriage for as low as 700 Ghana cedis. But then we live in a digital world where now the pomp and the pageantry are all on there. And so marriage is actually not expensive. We also spoke to the fact that given the digital era we are in, we can also look at publication of bands and then publishing them on social media as well. So the publication of bands actually has to do with the announcing of the marriage and the fact that you have to only do it in the church the person is. But what if the man is married elsewhere, or the woman is also married elsewhere? And so
how would people get
to know and then notice? So we had a conversation about moving it onto social media where everyone can have the conversation. And so these informed our decision to organize it once again. And then we are very grateful to Mrs. Betty Modidrisu for accepting to be the chairperson for this year's event. So this year we are looking at legal rights, recognized love. And it has to do with the fact that we are rethinking a future of accountability and then more or less including digital inclusion as well as cultural harmony. And the kind of topics we have on board this year are whether or not DNA should be requested at birth.
We had that debate on radio once. I think it was generally agreed that yes, it would be good.
It would be good for us to have DNA at birth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, because of all the controversies. You know, there are people who raise children to a certain age, and then it turns out, Mrs. Betty Maud Idrisu, you disagree with this?
Totally disagree with it. You cannot do that in any society in the world. I don't know any society.
UK is having it.
Where you have DNA at birth, and you give the results to the mother and the father. Look, you know what will happen to my people. I think you know who my people are.
But genuinely, sometimes babies are swapped. Sometimes there are mistakes from the hospital itself.
This is the problem, and this is something that we have to look at rectifying and strengthening the laws regarding that. I would never agree to DNA.
I know, Albert.
I think it's a total disrespect.
If we have a conversation, if you have a conversation later on at DNA or Bev, I think I will be able to persuade Auntie Betty Maud of why DNA should be at Bev. And that conversation will be, I definitely will have it at the conference to see, because there are health benefits, there are benefits of the child. That's our personal view.
But I want to just quickly, Auntie Betty, just quickly on this. So how do you empathize? I'm sure you've seen stories of men who have, raised children, and then, turns out later in life that they were not the biological fathers of the children, and they didn't even know it.
I'm very Ashanti in this. I believe that children belong to their mothers, yes, to the fathers, but these are very rare cases. They're exceptional. Maybe they're one in a million. You understand me? So I think that we should take that into account. And my brothers and sisters, or my sisters in Ashanti Kingdom, say that it's only the mother who knows the true identity of the child. And the child belongs to the mother. And we share the same blood with our nieces born of the same, daughters born of the same mothers. So we know that there's a blood connection. You understand me? We have our own way of DNA.
but and that's an interesting bit of it. I understand Auntie Maud's position, but we also raise the concern that under the Children's Act, the right to maintain is given by the one who doesn't have custody, because the position of the law is that it's preferential for custody to be with the woman. And once it's with the woman, the man has to maintain.
I understand all of that. Yeah. Those are the legal regimes.
I understand your position too.
When you go to, for example, I had a Nigerian friend who came, did surrogacy and and couldn't get visas for her, for her children. It's very complex, and I think other countries are still struggling their way through. I think we should take it a bit easy on what we are trying to do. The problem is in the hospitals, and that's where we should look at, and the nursing homes and the clinics where women give birth, and what some of the staff there can do, switching babies, selling babies. I'm well aware of that.
Right.
And the Department of Social Welfare needs to get involved in terms of adoptions and fosterage of children.
Right.
These are, I think, as lawyers, we should confine ourselves to that aspect. It's true. It's going on. And it's something we must look at very, very closely.
Okay, so Barima, I see what your first topic has resulted in. What else do you have?
So we are also talking about protecting cohabitant spouses. And I think this is very common in our cultural settings. You have people living together for, let's say, 10 years, 20 years. They may not have necessarily been married, but owing to the fact that maybe they've given birth to 2 or 3 children, they are deemed to be married. And so what are the rights of these spouses in the event of separation or in the event of death?
Yeah, isn't this what went to Parliament and then...
Advent will come in there.
Let me interrupt you again.
Here in Parliament has problems.
The 1992 Constitution mandates Parliament to pass a law to regulate the distribution of property rights upon dissolution of marriage. 2011, I presented the bill before Parliament. Up till date, nothing has been passed by Parliament. And there was and we did a lot of work on it. And I'll expatiate more on that on Tuesday at the Marriage Governance Conference. It's really very, very, very sad what has gone on there.
Right.
Okay, and we also have rethinking maintenance of special needs adults.
Okay.
Okay, so in our setting, we know that once a child is 18, they are deemed adults and must fend for themselves. So in our setting, even when you are 18, you still request for school fees from your dad, but then ideally you are not supposed to do that because you are deemed as an adult. However, what happens in the case of a special needs person who is an adult? We are also looking at lowering taxes and then providing marriage incentives, given the fact that we go through a lot in our daily lives, that must the government maybe come in to lower the burden of marriage people. We're also looking at mental health in marriages, because I think most of the time mental health is often overlooked, because the strength of a spouse depends on the other party. And so once the person is catered for both mentally, emotionally, they are very able to thrive and then give rise to a very good and then a happy home.
You know, immediately you said that, I was thinking, we've talked many times about mental health in the workplace, but never in marriage.
Interesting. But the interesting bit of it is that if you look at the Domestic Violence Act, the definition of emotional violence, if you make your husband or your wife constantly unhappy or feel jittery, it's, you know, there's a whole, so you have certain laws which governs mental health in marriages and all those things. And sometimes to remember that whenever we mention mental health, people think about stripping yourself naked, you are mad. But some offense in insanity as a defense in crime. So there are instances where there is a link between mental health and the law, which we want to explore in terms of mental health in marriages and see how best we can bring the conversation.
Right.
And then finally, we are talking about who owns the dead body. And I think flowing from the conversation, this is something that really affects each and every one of us, because there's been questions about the law, there's been questions about the family, but what about the dignity of the person? What about the dignity in preserving the legacy of the person? And so these are some of the conversations that we are looking to have at the Marriage Governance Conference.
Right, and it's happening when?
It's happening on Tuesday, 19th August 2025 at the Ghana Shippers Authority, and it's starting at 9 a.m. It's going to be streamed online as well, and it's being held in person. So we are going to stream via Zoom, via Facebook, on all our platforms as MarryRightsGhana.com. And if you would want to register to attend in person, to check us out on our social media, we have the registration details, and it's free. Okay. And so let's all come and learn.
Social media handles Mary Rights?
Mary Rights Ghana on all platforms.
Okay, all right. Madam Betty Modiduso, you're chairing this. What's your job exactly?
I'm looking forward to it. I think a lot of people should know my views on marriage by now. I concentrate on gender. I try not to talk too much because I have my own view, very, very deep-rooted views out of what I have seen over the years as it affects women. I'm very much engendered in this respect. And I have my own deep views on what should be done in order to reenact or further our laws, to amend our laws and see the way forward. I'm very interested in Islamic marriages, and in most of them end up void and avoidable because of the strict requirements. And I've had several Muslim clerics who are going to come there on Tuesday to discuss the possible amendments of the law to make it easier and for women, or for the marriages to be registered and the marriages to be valid. Right. So there's so many things. And then for me, I'm looking at mental health is a big issue which people don't talk about much in Ghana. But I'm looking at how we can put the woman in a central position where she feels safe in the home, where if there's a problem, she can walk out of the marriage and know that she'll be entitled to something. Right. And I want to commend, let me just commend the judiciary. I'm going to commend them on Tuesday. Let me commend Ghana's judiciary for the fantastic, innovative work they have done over the last decade or so in enabling women to have their rightful share of the property upon dissolution of marriage. Right. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you all on Tuesday.
Thank you very much. And you have 30 seconds, I'm afraid, Dennis.
What I would say is that matters of family affect everybody. In that regard, Ghana can only develop when we pay attention to family. This idea of not paying attention to family is why I think it's a major issue why we are not developing. Because wherever we start from the family first. Be it our own families or families that we adopt. So for us to be shaped properly, starts with the family. And the union of the family also helps in terms of building the software of the Ghanaian, which is the brain of the Ghanaian, which we don't pay attention to. So the consumption that we have been having for the brain of the Ghanaian often is not in terms of our ethos. And we hope that this conversation that we are having will be done more. And we hope that although there may not be any, procurement or the political parties may not have brought it together, it's our prayer that the media house will still put at the forefront. We are tired of the MPP and DC all the time. Let's see what their policies are on these issues that they are raising.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the resolutions out of this conference. Thank you very much, gentlemen, here. And we are so grateful to you, Mrs. Betty Maud Idrisu, for joining us. On behalf of the production team, led by Director Yao Forsen and producer Mamiesi Nyamiche Thompson, my name is Mama Viuswabwaje. We thank you for your company and participation. Thank you, Dennis Ejay Jomo. Thank you, Mrs. Betty Maud Idrisu. And certainly thank you, Berima Owusu. Well, have a fruitful week. We'll see you next time.